The grocery store hummed with the ordinary music of daytime life. Cartwheels whispering across polished floors, the soft beeps of scanners, the distant clatter of bottles being restocked, when something quietly heartbreaking unfolded in aisle 7. The kind of moment most people walk past without noticing, the kind that disappears if no one dares to look twice. Sunlight streamed through the high front windows, catching dust motes in the air, and in that warm, forgiving glow stood a woman who seemed to shrink with every passing second, invisible in a place designed for abundance. What happened next did not involve shouting or heroics, but it would ripple outward, changing lives in ways no one could have predicted. Before the story pulls you all the way in, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet power of doing the right thing, to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel Home with Dad. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that might be waiting for them. The man pushing the cart that morning was named Calder Rowan, a single father who measured time in lunch breaks and bedtime routines, a man who had learned to live with the ache of loss and the stubborn hope of rebuilding. The twins trotting beside him were 7 years old, bright-eyed and observant, the kind of children who noticed details adults had trained themselves to ignore. Arlo, with his thoughtful pauses and careful steps, and Brinley, with her quick movements and earnest expressions, had been Calder's anchor since the day grief cracked his world open. Their mother, Maeve, had died 3 years earlier on a clear afternoon much like this one, leaving behind silence where laughter had lived. Since then, Calder had learned how to braid hair with clumsy hands, how to pack lunches that said love without words, and how to show up even when exhaustion pulled at his bones. Daytime errands were Calder's way of keeping life predictable. He shopped mid-morning to avoid crowds, choosing routine over chaos. He let the twins pick one cereal each and reminded them gently about budgets, about needs versus wants. He taught them, without sermons, that being decent mattered more than being loud. That lesson would come alive today in a way he could never have planned. In aisle 7, near the shelves stacked with soups and canned vegetables, the woman stood clutching a small basket. She was not old, not young, but worn in a way that spoke of nights without sleep and days without relief. Her name, though Calder did not know it yet, was Selene Whitaker. She wore a faded cardigan despite the warmth, as if it offered protection. Her eyes moved from label to label, counting silently, lips pressing together as if holding something back. When she approached the self-checkout area, a small crowd had formed, people tapping phones, glancing at watches, shifting impatiently. Selene hesitated, then stepped forward, only to be brushed aside by someone who slid ahead without meeting her eyes. She tried again, offering a polite nod that went unanswered. The line closed around her like water around a stone. Calder noticed because the twins noticed. Arlo slowed, his gaze fixed on the woman's hands, the way they trembled slightly. Brinley tugged at Calder's sleeve, her brow furrowed with confusion at the way adults moved around Selene as if she were a shelf. Calder followed their eyes and felt a familiar tightening in his chest, the recognition of being unseen. He remembered hospital hallways, paperwork shuffled without compassion, condolences offered and withdrawn too quickly. He remembered standing in a world that kept moving while his had stopped. The store was bright and busy, a daytime scene that made invisibility more jarring. Selene finally reached a scanner, but her card failed. A soft error tone sounded. She tried again, then again, her face flushing. A sigh rose from somewhere behind her. Someone cleared their throat pointedly. A store employee glanced over, then looked away, overwhelmed or unsure. Selene's shoulders rounded inward. She began removing items from her basket one by one, setting them aside with care, as if each can carried weight beyond its label. The twins watched, and in that watching, something settled into certainty. Calder felt it before he understood it. The way Arlo's posture straightened, the way Brinley's hand tightened around the card handle. They did not speak, but their intention was clear in the way children's intentions often are, unburdened by calculation. Calder paused, weighing the day's quiet rules against the deeper ones he had tried to live by. He thought of Maeve's voice, steady and kind, reminding him that decency is not a performance, it is a habit. The twins moved first, stepping closer with a gentleness that made space rather than demanding it. Brinley reached into the cart and lifted the box of cereal she had chosen, the one with the bright colors, and placed it on Selene's pile, without ceremony. Arlo followed, adding the loaf of bread they'd debated over earlier, then a carton of eggs. Their faces were earnest, not proud, their eyes asking permission rather than praise. Selene looked up, startled, confusion flickering into disbelief. The error tone sounded again, and for a moment time seemed to hold its breath. Calder felt the weight of 100 small decisions align into one. He stepped forward and placed his hand over the scanner, pausing the process. He offered Selene his place, his card, his attention, without turning it into a spectacle. He spoke softly, the way you do when you want to protect dignity. He made it clear, without saying it aloud, that this was not charity but community. The twins stood at his sides, steady as bookends. Around them, the store seemed to slow. People noticed not because of volume, but because of contrast. A line that had been impatient became quiet. A cashier approached, this time with focus. Selene's eyes filled, not spilling over, but shining with something like relief. She nodded, once, then again, the smallest acknowledgments carrying the heaviest meaning. The transaction completed. The scanner beeped its approval. Selene gathered the bags with care, as if afraid the moment might break if handled roughly. Calder waved away thanks, gesturing instead to the twins, whose expressions held a gravity beyond their years. The crowd dispersed, but something lingered, a softness in the air, a sense that the day had shifted on its axis. They met again outside, sunlight bright and honest. Selene stood near the benches by the entrance, breathing deeply as if relearning how. Calder hesitated, then approached, not to explain but to listen. Selene shared, haltingly, the shape of her days, a recent layoff, medical bills, a string of interviews that led nowhere. She spoke of being tired of being overlooked, of shrinking to fit spaces that refused to make room. Calder listened, recognizing the cadence of someone who had been carrying too much for too long. The twins sat on the bench, swinging their legs, offering Selene the simple presence of children who had not yet learned to ration empathy. They spoke of school projects and library cards, and the way bread smelled when toasted. Selene laughed then, a sound that surprised her as much as anyone. It was a daytime laugh, tentative but real. Calder did not promise solutions. He offered something quieter and, in its way, braver, connection. He mentioned a community center that helped with job leads, a neighbor who ran a small bakery and needed help during the day, a routine of showing up that had saved him when he was drowning. Selene listened, hope threading cautiously through her words. Days passed, and the grocery store moment became a story Calder told himself when the nights were long. But it did not end there. Selene found her way to the community center. The bakery needed hands and heart, and Selene had both. The twins visited after school sometimes, their backpacks leaning against flour-dusted counters, their laughter mixing with the hum of ovens. Calder helped where he could, learning that support is often reciprocal, that the act of seeing someone can change the architecture of your own life. Daytime scenes filled with meaning. Selene behind the counter, her posture taller. Calder in the mornings, coffee cooling as he packed lunches. The twins in the park after school, practicing kindness like a language they were becoming fluent in. The grocery store became a landmark not of shame, but of beginning. The challenges did not vanish. Bills still arrived. Exhaustion still pressed in. There were setbacks, an appliance breaking, a shift cut short. But there was also resilience, the kind that grows when shared. Calder learned that single fatherhood did not mean solitary strength. It meant building bridges. Selene learned that asking for help did not erase dignity. It restored it. Months later, on another bright day, the store held a small community board near the entrance. Flyers layered over one another, announcements handwritten and hopeful. Selene pinned up a notice about a job opening at the bakery. Calder watched as strangers paused to read it. The twins stood proudly nearby, not because they wanted credit, but because they recognized the shape of a circle closing and opening again. The story traveled quietly, as the best ones do. It moved through nods and smiles, through people choosing to hold doors and make room. It moved through the twins' school, where a teacher noticed their instinct to include. It moved through Calder's heart, where grief made space for gratitude without diminishing either. As this story draws near its end, if it has touched your heart, if you felt that tightening, that warmth, that recognition, please take a moment to engage with this video. Your likes, comments, and shares tell the platform that stories of compassion matter, that small acts deserve big light. And before the final moment, a special request. Please comment below with a single word that this story stirred in you. Hope, kindness, courage, or something entirely your own. Those words have a way of finding the people who need them most. On a final afternoon, Calder and the twins walked past aisle 7 again. Sunlight fell the same way. The shelves were full. Selene was not there, but her presence was woven into the ordinary. Calder understood then that the most powerful moments rarely announce themselves. They happen in the daylight, between errands, when someone chooses to see and to act. The twins skipped ahead, laughter echoing, and Calder followed, carrying not just groceries but a renewed faith in what a single moment of kindness can become when it is allowed to grow.